Today we continue exploring the meaning or some of the meanings of Jesus from the Gospel of Mark. And so it is this morning's meditation. Its title and the content have been chosen carefully. And as for a further exposition, I would refer those interested, you might want to look at a scholar named Marcus Borg. Though as for agreeing with Dr. Borg on a lot of stuff, I'm iffy, but nonetheless, I find him important reading. I want to start with the state of Judaism in the first century. It was imperiled by the yoke of imperial Rome, as well as the encroachments of scores of pagan religions that would threaten its very soul and the very soul of the Jewish religion. In short, the very existence of Judaism was, for its religious leaders, immediate and dire. Now, as do most all religions, when threatened with marginalization, if not extinction, there are impulses, and usually set by the leadership or by prophets or holy people who come along, to get back to their sacred roots or their basics. And to this end, the religious leadership of Israel turned to what is called the Holiness Code, found in Leviticus chapters 17 through 26, and in particular, the scripture that Dr. Haddad read this morning, and again, be holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy. And the idea behind this was the belief that the nation of Israel was in trouble, not so much because it was beset before and behind by paganism and the power of Rome, but rather because it had commingled with non-Jews. And as a result, it had become impure, and as a result, God had turned his back or his face upon Israel and had permitted it to just continue its destructive behavior. And you might know, and I think those of you who are sensitive, this is a recurring theme in most all of the New Testament and Old Testament, and indeed, we see it today in pulpits throughout the United States, and I do disagree with them, and that is that the United States is in trouble when we got to get back to Jesus and to God, or God's going to turn his back on us, and then we'll be devoured by whatever. But be that as it is, that theme is still here today, and it's a theme primarily of purification and impurity. Namely, that according to the Jewish leadership, and you see it again today, and I won't go into that, but according to the Jewish leadership, what the people of God have to do is to get back to holiness. They have to get back to separating themselves from the everyday, the vulgar, the common, the humdrum, the profane, and rather reorient themselves back to that which is sacred and holy. They have to get back to God, and in getting back to God, they would, of course, save the nation. Consequently, the Jewish leadership reemphasized the ancient laws and ordinances and regulations found in sacred tradition in an attempt to put the nation back in correct or right or righteous relationship with God. This meant that, first of all, one of the things that it means that I can control God with my unrighteous behavior, and I am more powerful than God. That's sort of things that it means. Think that through. Anyway, it meant to those this holiness idea that you have to be pure before God, and that includes everything, that those Jews unwilling or unable to do so or to be so would be effectively shunned or cut off from the true, read holy, worshiping community. Why? Just as one bad apple spoils the whole bunch, the whole barrel, so too does one sinner infect the true people of God. And you have to think of those sinners as being contagions. And so, for example, if we had a sinner in this church, and of course I'm sure we don't, that if we had a sinner in this church, then that would mean that they would have to be gotten rid of because they would be pus-filled, and they would be infecting, and so we would have to get rid of them. And so that's what you do. You get rid of that which is unclean, because it can destroy the church, or in this case, the nation. Thus, as you know, tax collectors, sinners, outcasts, loose women, they never talk about loose men, but loose women, and the list goes on and on and on and on and on. All of these Jews that fall into these impure categories then, and therefore they are imperfect, are in effect disenfranchised from practicing Judaism, unless, of course, you perform the rite ablution or symbolic or real act of cleansing yourself or killing an animal or something like that. And so what developed is what is called the politics of holiness. The idea being that for the nation's survival, because it is of utmost importance, the people have to become holy. And if you're holy, now mind you, you got to understand this, then you control God's behavior. If you're holy, you control God's behavior, and then God will not turn his back on you. Think about that. It's like the people that say, if you give your life to Jesus Christ, then he'll save you. That means you control the salvation acts of Jesus. Think about that. If it would have been left to me to give my life to Christ, I would not have done it. I have no power, I have no authority, I have no will, I have nothing to give my life to Christ. And I guess I'm the only person in the whole world that's been able to give his life to Christ. I never did. Christ claimed me, and I'm grateful for that. So anyway, the politics of holiness then developed with the idea to save the nation, and the people were, as you well know, they were outfitted with this yoke, this burden that the religious establishment put on them, making them twice as fit for hell as they were themselves. That's right from the Bible. The great religious, holy leadership put this on the people and in effect destroyed them. And we also know this is from the Bible, this is from history. This experiment failed miserably, and by the year 70 A.D., Jerusalem was utterly destroyed, thanks to the politics of holiness. And the Jewish people were eliminated from Palestine. So it's into this stew pot of cultural uncertainty and political upheaval and religious fundamentalism, a young man, 30ish or so, began preaching.